Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles. I remember the moment Emily sat me down and told me, in the calmest voice possible, that she needed a break. But not just any break. No, she needed a month-long trial with another man. She sat across from me at our kitchen table, her manicured fingers tracing the rim of her wine glass like this was some casual Tuesday conversation. I need to be sure, she said, her blue eyes full of manufactured sorrow. I love you, but I love him too, and I need to see what life would be like with him before I make a final decision. I felt something inside me fracture. Not break. Not yet. You need to be sure? I repeated, my voice hollow. She nodded. I don't want to throw away everything we have just in case. I realize I made a mistake. That's why I need this month. To figure it out. To figure it out. Like I was some backup plan. Some safety net for when things didn't work out with her other man. You want me to just wait for you? I asked, gripping the table edge. She sighed, as if I was being unreasonable. I'm not asking you to wait. I'm asking you to understand. This is the only way I can make the right decision for both of us. Both of us. The sheer audacity of her words was almost impressive. And that's when I knew this wasn't a mistake on her part. This wasn't a moment of weakness. This was calculated. She thought she had both of us wrapped around her finger. She thought she had the luxury of choice. And right then, something inside me snapped back into place. Not in anger. In absolute clarity. Emily was playing a game. She thought she was holding the cards. She had no idea I was about to burn the whole deck. I kept my face neutral. Controlled. Okay, I said, standing up from the table. She blinked. Okay. I nodded. You need time? Fine. Take it. Emily hesitated, as if she expected me to protest, to fight for her, to beg her not to leave. I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. Instead, I grabbed a beer from the fridge, twisted the cap off, and took a long, slow drink. She licked her lips. I know this is hard to hear, but it's the mature thing to do. It's what's best for us. I almost laughed. Yeah, I murmured. Mature. She smiled then, an infuriatingly smug smile because she thought she had one. Then she got up, walked over, and kissed my cheek. I'll be back in a month, she whispered. And then, she packed her bags and left. The moment she walked out the door, I got to work. I already knew his name, Ethan Crawford. Some free-spirited entrepreneur she met at a networking event 3 months ago. I had known about him before, but I thought it was just harmless flirting. I had assumed, like a fool, that my wife wouldn't go that far. Turns out, I had underestimated just how selfish she really was. I dug deep. His business? A struggling startup. His finances? Laughable. His reputation? Tainted by whispers of shady deals and unpaid debts. And yet, this was the man she was willing to gamble our marriage on. Pathetic. But the most interesting thing? Ethan had a weakness, and I was about to exploit it. The first thing I did was meet with my lawyer. Emily had no idea that our shared bank account now only had half the money it did yesterday. She also had no idea that I had already started the paperwork for divorce. Not to file yet, but to have it ready the moment she made her decision. And when she came crawling back, thinking I'd still be there, she'd realize she had nothing. Emily's family had always liked me. Her parents, her sister, they all thought she had married up. So I made sure they knew everything. I invited them over for dinner. A nice, heartfelt conversation about how Emily had left to explore her options, but planned on choosing between us after a month. The look on her mother's face? Priceless. Her dad? Silent and furious. Her sister? Already taking screenshots of Emily's Instagram, where she was posting new beginnings photos with her lover. I let them stew in it. Let them process the fact that their golden child was a selfish, ungrateful cheater. And then, I just sat back and watched the chaos unfold. I needed Emily to feel secure, to believe that when she came back, she would still have me waiting. So I played the role of the wounded husband. I sent her one text a week. Hope you're doing okay. Thinking about you. I miss you. She ate it up. Even sent back half-hearted responses. Miss you too. Hope you're taking care of yourself. This is harder than I thought. I just need more time. More time? Oh, sweetheart. Take all the time you need. Because by the time you come back, there won't be anything left for you. She came back grinning. She walked into the house like she owned it, as if she had just taken a little vacation and was ready to pick up where she left off. She dropped her bags at the door, sighing dramatically. I've made my decision, she announced. I leaned back on the couch, swirling a glass of bourbon in my hand. Oh, I mused. And what's that? She smiled. So confident, so sure. I choose you, she said, her voice filled with fake sincerity. I realized that what we have is real. I had to go to appreciate it. But I know now you're my home. She took a step forward, reaching for me. But I didn't move. Instead, I smiled. And then I said the words that made her world shatter. Emily? I sighed, shaking my head. I didn't choose you. Her face froze. Her confidence? Gone. And then, just like that, the power shifted. And I watched her fall apart. She blinked. Once. Twice. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Her confidence evaporated in an instant. The smug satisfaction she carried in her posture melting into something almost childlike. Confusion. Fear. Panic. What do you mean? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I swirled the bourbon in my glass lazily, watching the exact moment the realization sank in. You spent a month deciding between me and another man, I said, my voice calm, measured. And while you were doing that, I took a slow sip. I spent that month deciding whether I'd let you come back. Her hands trembled as she took a step closer, like she could physically close the distance between us, as if she could fix this with proximity. You're just upset right now, she stammered, forcing out a laugh that didn't land. I get it. This was hard for both of us. But we can talk about it, baby. We can. I set my glass down and stood up, cutting off whatever excuse she was about to offer. No, Emily, we can't. She froze, her entire body going still. I could see it now, the truth sinking in. She had gambled, and she had lost. I walked past her, grabbing a manila envelope from the side table. She flinched as I held it out, like she already knew what was inside. Divorce papers, I said smoothly. Already signed. I left a space for your signature. Her mouth dropped open, her breath shallow. You had these drawn up? 3 weeks ago, I said, just in case. The color drained from her face. You were planning this the whole time? I shrugged. You left me here like some fool on standby while you went to test drive another man. Did you really think I'd just sit around and let you choose my future for me? Tears welled in her eyes, but I could already tell. This wasn't regret. It was panic. She wasn't crying because she missed me. She wasn't crying because she suddenly realized how much she loved me. She was crying because she had miscalculated. I was supposed to wait for her, to be grateful when she picked me. Instead, I had moved on without her. Emily gripped the divorce papers with shaking fingers, flipping through the pages. You're serious? I nodded. I'll give you 3 days to sign them, I said, walking back toward the couch. After that, I'll file them anyway. You won't get a dime, Emily. I made sure of that. Her head snapped up, panic flashing in her eyes. What do you mean I won't get anything? I smirked. She was finally asking the right questions. She didn't know. She had no idea what I'd done while she was off playing house with Ethan. Emily assumed that she could walk back into her old life, slide back into our marriage, and everything would be waiting exactly as she left it. But she had underestimated me. The first thing I did after she left was protect my assets. Our shared bank account, cut in half. She had access to a separate account for her own expenses, but she didn't know that all the big money, our investments, our savings, everything that mattered, had been moved to an account she couldn't touch. The house? Still mine. She had assumed that if we divorced, she'd get half of everything, maybe even more. But she forgot one crucial detail, the prenup. When we first got married, she had fought me on it. Why do we need a prenup? She had whined. You don't think we're going to last? But I was smart. I told her it was just a precaution. She rolled her eyes and signed it anyway. And now that single piece of paper was about to ruin her life. Her hands tightened around the documents, her chest rising and falling in quick, uneven breaths. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "No, you can't just leave me with nothing." I leaned back in my chair, watching the desperation seep into her face. "Why not?" I asked casually. Her lip quivered. I made a mistake, okay? But it was just a trial, I just needed to be sure." "You needed to be sure?" I scoffed. "Emily, do you even hear yourself? You walked out on our marriage. You spent an entire month sleeping in another man's bed. And now you want me to just forget about it." She flinched. I could see it now. The helplessness. The realization that she had nothing left to bargain with. "You don't get to decide what happens now," I continued, my voice calm, almost bored. "You lost that privilege the moment you walked out of this house. You don't get to come back and play the devoted wife just because things didn't work out with your boyfriend." Her face twisted in pain, but I saw the truth beneath the heartbreak. She wasn't upset about losing me. She was upset about losing the security I provided. Emily had assumed I would always be an option. She thought that, even if things didn't work out with Ethan, she could slide back into my life like nothing happened. But the world she left behind, it didn't exist anymore. She let out a ragged breath. "What if I don't sign them?" I smirked. "Then I'll let my lawyer handle it." Her jaw clenched. "You're really doing this?" I nodded. Emily wiped her face, trying to regain control. "And what about Jason?" she asked, bringing up our son's name like it was some kind of shield. "He'll never forgive you for breaking up our family." I almost laughed. "You mean your family?" I said. "Because Jason already knows what you did." Her body went rigid. "What?" I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. "Did you think I wouldn't tell him? That I wouldn't explain why his mother decided she needed to explore her options before coming home?" Her face crumbled. He knows. Not just him," I continued. "Your parents, your sister, your friends." Her hands flew to her mouth. "Oh my God! You wanted to test the waters, Emily?" I tilted my head. "Hope you like drowning." She broke, right there in front of me, sobbing, gasping for air, her shoulders shaking under the weight of what she had just lost. I stood up, walking past her, heading for the door. "You can stay here tonight," I said without looking back. "But by the weekend, I want you out." She collapsed onto the floor, still clutching the divorce papers in trembling hands. And as I stepped outside into the crisp night air, I took the deepest breath I had in years. I was free. She was nothing, and I had won. Emily had always been a woman who thrived on control. She controlled conversations, controlled emotions, controlled me for most of our marriage. She walked into every room with the certainty that she was the most important person in it. And now she was nothing. I saw it in the way she slumped against the kitchen wall, gripping the divorce papers like they were a death sentence. The tears streaking down her face weren't for love lost. They were for power lost. She wasn't mourning me. She was mourning her options. I left her there. I didn't comfort her. Didn't offer a tissue, a word of reassurance, a single damn thing. I just let her sit in the wreckage of her own making. By the next morning, the begging began. I woke up to 3 missed calls. By the time I made my coffee, there were 5 unread messages, each one a little more desperate than the last. "Emily, please talk to me. We can work this out." "Emily, I didn't mean to hurt you. It was just a mistake." "Emily, don't do this, please. I'll do anything." "Emily, can we at least talk before you file the papers?" "Emily, I don't want to lose everything. Please just hear me out." I took a sip of my coffee, letting her words sit there. Pathetic. She still didn't get it. She thought this was a negotiation, like I was going to bargain my dignity just because she was finally feeling the consequences. I didn't respond. Instead, I went to work. Business as usual. By lunchtime, I got another message. "Emily, I told Ethan it's over. I ended it. I want to come home. I laughed. Oh, sweetheart, you really think that changes anything? The final blow was delivered later that evening. She walked into the living room, looking different, softer, smaller, like she had lost all the confidence she used to carry so carelessly. Her hands were shaking as she placed a cup of tea on the table, like we were about to have a gentle, heartfelt conversation. Like this was still her home. She sat down across from me, took a deep breath, and said the words I expected but still enjoyed hearing. I made a mistake. I stayed silent, just watching. She swallowed hard. I thought I needed to see what life with Ethan would be like. I thought, I don't know, that maybe I was missing something. But I wasn't. I had everything I needed here. She reached across the table, her fingers trembling, like she was afraid to touch me without permission. I choose you, she whispered. I love you. I was stupid and selfish, and I see that now. The room was so quiet I could hear the ticking of the clock behind her. I let the silence drag on, let her sit in it. Then finally I smiled, and said the words I knew would shatter her. You don't have a choice anymore, Emily. She flinched. Her lips parted, but no words came. I leaned back, tilting my head as I studied her. You're acting like you're giving me a gift, I said smoothly. Like I should be grateful you're choosing me after spending a month in another man's bed. Tears welled in her eyes. It wasn't like that. I cut her off with a laugh. Emily, do you think I care what it was like? I shook my head. You don't get to choose me. I am not an option. I am not some second-place prize because the guy you left for turned out to be a disappointment. She gasped. Her breath hitched. No, I said firmly. No more excuses. No more justifications. You thought you could put me on hold while you ran off and had your fun. And now that you realize you lost, you expect me to just take you back. She was fully crying now. Not the manipulative tears she used to pull. These were real, because for the first time in her life, she wasn't in control. I can be better, she whispered, voice cracking. I can fix this. I stood up. Her whole body tensed, like she was preparing for a final decision. And I gave her one. You have 3 days to pack your things and leave, she sagged. A full-body collapse of someone who just realized they lost everything. Jason came home from his shift at the auto shop later that night. I told him everything, not just about Emily leaving, but about how she tried to crawl back like nothing happened. He didn't even look surprised. He just nodded. She really thought you'd wait for her? I chuckled. She did. Jason shook his head, then smirked. Damn, she really doesn't know you at all. No, I agreed, pouring myself another drink. She doesn't. Jason clapped a hand on my shoulder. She's gonna regret this for the rest of her life, he said. I smiled. She already does. Emily signed the papers the next day. No more pleading. No more games. Just the quiet acceptance of her own failure. By the weekend, she was gone. And by the time Monday rolled around, she was nothing but a memory. Jason and I rebuilt from there. The house felt lighter. Life felt brighter. And Emily? Well, she texted a few times. I never responded. She ran into mutual friends, tried to rewrite the story, make herself the victim. But nobody believed her. She had one shot at happiness. And she threw it away. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to humiliate her. Because she did that all by herself. And the best part? I never had to say another word. Because the silence? That was the real punishment. Emily disappeared from my life as quickly as she had walked out the door that first night, convinced she had the world at her feet. But the thing about arrogance is that it only lasts as long as the illusion holds. And Emily's illusion? It had shattered. The first few weeks after she moved out, she tried to act like she was fine. Mutual friends told me she was putting on a show, going out to brunches, posting new chapter captions on social media, pretending like she was thriving. But the truth? She was drowning, and everyone saw it. She went to Ethan first. I knew she would. The man she had left me for, the one she was so sure was a better fit, a better option, was the only thing she had left to fall back on. But Ethan wasn't the fantasy she built him up to be. The moment she stepped into his life full-time, she realized what I had already known. Ethan wasn't stable. He wasn't reliable. He wasn't anything more than a man in debt, living paycheck to paycheck, selling a dream he could never actually afford. I had done my research. Ethan's so-called business? A failing mess. His apartment? Rented, not owned. His lifestyle? Built on credit cards and borrowed money. And suddenly, Emily wasn't the fun, exciting mistress anymore. She was just another responsibility. Another weight he couldn't carry. She moved in with him, thinking they would build something new together. 2 weeks later, he kicked her out. She didn't tell anyone, of course. But I found out anyway. Mutual friends saw her crashing on a friend's couch. Rumors started circulating that she was job hunting, trying to start over, in a city where everyone knew what she had done. She reached out again. Not directly. She was too proud for that. But she started liking my photos again, replying to old messages with "hope you're doing well" texts, as if I would ever entertain her again. I never responded. She didn't deserve my words. She deserved my silence. Jason and I moved forward. The house felt different without her in it. Lighter, quieter, better. We started hosting Sunday barbecues again. I started laughing more. I even went on a few dates. Jason approved of that last part. About damn time, he smirked when I told him. Emily, on the other hand, she heard about it. And she broke. One night, after months of radio silence, she called. Not a text. Not an email. A real call. I saw her name flash on my screen and almost let it go to voicemail. But then I picked up. Not because I cared. Because I wanted to hear her voice one last time. She was crying before I even said hello. I just needed to hear your voice, she choked out. I don't know why I did what I did. I don't know what I was thinking. I let her ramble. Let her pour out the regret she had been bottling up for months. I miss you, she whispered. I miss us. I smiled. The kind of cold, knowing smile she couldn't see. No, you don't, I said simply. She went quiet. She knew I was right. She didn't miss me. She missed the life I gave her. She missed the stability, the security. She missed having a man who actually had his life together. But she didn't miss me, because if she had, she never would have left in the first place. I let the silence sit there. Then finally I ended it. I have to go, Emily. Her breath hitched. Wait. I hung up. And that was the last time we ever spoke. Emily faded into the background of my life. A ghost of a mistake I would never make again. I built something new. I met someone better. Someone who didn't treat me like an option. Someone who knew that love wasn't about testing waters or keeping backups. It was about respect. Jason grew into a stronger man because of this. He learned what I learned. That when someone shows you who they really are, you believe them. And Emily? Well, she spent years trying to fix her image, but no one ever really forgot. She wasn't the golden girl anymore. She was just the woman who lost everything because she thought she was too good to hold on to what she had. And me? I didn't regret a damn thing. Because in the end, she thought she was choosing between two men. She didn't realize we both moved on without her. And that was the real punishment. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.